I think I recognize everybody in here. Thank you. Thanks for coming to the spring meetings. I hope you got the access that you needed while you were here. If you didn't, let us know. I think Amy does a great job, and everybody's got different types of requests, etc. But happy you're here. I do want to just start with some opening remarks. I don't think they're too long, but there are some areas that I want to cover, and then I'll open it up, like I always try to do, to any questions that you have. We're really, really, really pleased with how the last 3 days have gone. We talked about a variety of things, which we certainly will get to. Inspired by the conversation, by a lot of the meetings that took place, whether they were individual meetings with our ADs, SWAs, coaches, FARs. So I'll touch base on that. Having Charlie Baker here was terrific. The timing couldn't have been better. I think several of you maybe had a chance to talk to Charlie when he left on Monday, but we got a solid 90 minutes. And for him to go from Massachusetts, on Mother's Day, which is such an important holiday, down here and then back to Indianapolis because he had like a late evening dinner or something, meant a lot. And we talked about some of our legal, cases. We talked about some of the governance issues. We talked about transfer portal and some of those types of things. ESPN was here, our partner, the most important partner we have. That was excellent. Time we had together. They also had a chance to be with our coaches and some of the rest of their staff. To have Cal, Stanford, and SMU here was really good as we integrate them into the conference this summer. SMU will officially become a member on July the 1st, and Cal and Stanford on August the 2nd. I have no idea why, but that's that's what happens. It's always great to be around our coaches, who I really try to stay connected to. So let me hit on a few things. No question, you're all covering it. This is a seismic shift in college athletics, and it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's happening now. I think we're all seeing it, and it just didn't start in the last few months. It has started over the last several years. The reality is we continue to be at the forefront of the ACC continues to be at the forefront of this change with other conferences and other leaders, and we're navigating these things together as best we can. I don't think anybody really knows where this thing is ultimately going to end, but certainly feel great about where the ACC is positioned now and into the future, and we will continue to be a major contributor to the destination of where college athletics goes. I know you want to talk about Florida State and Clemson. It's natural, I get it. I stand by every word that I've said before in previous settings. It's difficult, it's disruptive, it's harmful, but that's the world we live in, and they have the ability to do the things that they're doing, and we'll let the legal folks handle it, because that's the right thing to do. It hasn't changed one iota about how we've interacted with them, how we've treated them, certainly how we've treated the student athletes, and it just shouldn't. Because I think you have to be professional enough to understand these things happen, and it warrants classy, professional, respectful treatment in return. The prioritization of student athletes continues to be really important for us as we, again, just look at maybe some of the legal cases, some of the changing places where schools are relative. We've gone from regional-based conferences to nationally based conferences. Multiple conferences have kind of changed their footprint over the last few years, so we want to be thoughtful. We want to make sure that we're not ignoring the student athlete experience as we're diving into all of these really important priorities as it comes to getting through legal cases and governance structure and those kinds of things. I saw something recently about this idea of, maybe it's too old school to put student athletes first and all that. I just don't believe that. I don't believe that. I think we've lost our compass if we can't put them at the forefront of what we're trying to do. So that's just one person's opinion. House litigation, I think, I can't comment on it. You've seen a lot on it. Several of you, you got really good information. And the idea is, should we settle now or should we not? And I think that's a decision for each of the boards across the country, across the country to decide, conference boards, as well as the NCAA. We have met with the plaintiffs' attorneys multiple times, not just recently, but over the course of the last 18 months. And we will stay close with our, Pearl Hauk, who's amazing. She's our general counsel in the ACC and our outside counsel, so we'll stay close there. But we'll also stay close with the other conferences and the other commissioners who we speak almost daily. Certainly we're texting often. And we'll stay close with one another because this is certainly a joint decision that we all need to make, and we will, we'll get to the right place wherever that's supposed to go. Finally, I just want to share, because this meeting that we have in Amelia Island is a recap of the year we've just come off of, and so there's really a lot of celebratory moments because we've had an incredibly successful year. And I want to go through just a list of some things that maybe you're not tracking on, that maybe you've heard, or maybe there's a few things that may be new to you. But it's been a remarkable year when you think about. We went through a reorganization of our entire office, etc. We moved to Charlotte after 70 years in Greensboro. Added 3 world-class institutions: Cal, SMU, and Stanford. New football 7-year scheduling model. In February, we announced future basketball conference opponents, so just some of the scheduling piece of it. Prioritization, of being a national conference, getting into 2 new markets that I think are going to be outstanding. We have full distribution in our current states and our current markets, and that was something, when I came 3.5 years ago, that was something that I heard the angst about, we're not in all the markets of where our schools are, and we're not getting the revenue off of that when you're not in the market. So we've been in full distribution, and that's the goal as we get into Northern California and into Dallas. So we've been pushing on that. The branding, marketing piece accomplished greatness. We've worked with Wasserman quite a bit. I think you've seen it. It's had great results. Whether you look at some of the digital things that we're doing, some of the social things that we're doing, the impressions, amount of sales, all of that has been really a snowball, kind of going downhill and collecting more and more steam. I'm very appreciative of the folks at Wasserman. I think a lot of you know those individuals, top notch, and thankful for them. Announcement of our future future neutral site championships, and we'll have some in the state of North Carolina, throughout various cities, but we'll move it around. We've moved basketball around. We have to think about women's basketball with schools in different footprints. We'll think about getting out to the West Coast for some championships, etc. They'll get into the overall sequencing of that, just if they're playing certain sports, and some of our sports remain on campus sites. So neutral sites, some decisions there that we've announced, and then obviously the campus sites. Dr. Pepper, Crush, we've got a whole new host of new sponsorships, so sponsorships revenues at an all-time high. The deal with CW was very good for kind of that third tier package that was on Raycom. CW, don't exactly quote me, I think it's 110 to 115 million homes. I mean, it's like an ABC, CBS, NBC, and they continue to invest in sports. You'll see some announcements by them about other sports besides college sports that they're going to do. So I think that they're looking at that. That's been a really good kind of growth portion for us. 50 ACC football and basketball games each year, NCW, and as I said, 100% of the households. We added our 28th member this year with women's gymnastics. So 15 women's sports, 13 men's sports. Very proud of that. No peer conference has more sports offering on the female side of it. Financially, we're going to implement the most dynamic conference revenue distribution of all of its peer conferences with Success Initiative. And that's something that we've been working on for 18 months. You perform well on the field, you're going to get rewarded in a greater growth mode financially, and we've needed to do that. So as I look over the last several years, the full distribution, the dollars that equated to that, the dollars in Success Initiative, the dollars that came out of expansion, we remain and deliver the third highest gross revenue distribution among all conferences. That's important. It just is. We're not standing still. We're trying to address that gap, etc. And I think all of you know, what some of those numbers are. Full distribution in those two new media markets is important because those are two top 10 media markets that we haven't been in. So that will be something we'll continue to work on. And then I'll just finish with, when you combine academically and athletically where we're at, it's been exceptional. Just look at the rankings of these schools, look at the graduation rates of these student athletes, and then look at the sports that have won. We've won 5 titles this year, 21 in the last 3+ years, and we still have the spring year to go. 13 programs, nationally 13 programs representing 9 different schools have been ranked first or second in their respective sports this spring. This is the most of all conferences. 5 of the ACC's 11 spring sports have been ranked first or second. So I think that other statistic, 13 programs, I think that's throughout the year. 11 bowl eligible teams, which was the most of any of the Power 5 conferences. I mean, that's, I think that's a reflection of our football league that sometimes doesn't get the attention that it deserves, but 11 out of 14 in football. And then, the men's and women's basketball tournament was terrific. 12-5 men's basketball in 2024, 11-8 women's basketball. In men's basketball, over the last 3 years, we're 13-15. Women's basketball is 37-24. Remarkable. But I think you heard me also say at the end of the men's basketball year that I just wasn't happy with just the amount of teams that we had, and so we've been working hard over the last 4 to 6 weeks with some outside help, outside consulting, and we did a lot of work on that prior to coming to Amelia Island, and we certainly did some of that while we were here. So it's been a terrific year for the ACC in all the areas that I described, and so I'll stop there. I think that's enough, and we'll open it up to questions that maybe the group has.
Who wants to start us off for questions?
Can you talk about the deal you talked about ESPN being your most important partner? Can you talk about the length of the contract? And there's been some reports about whether or not how far it extends, and can you give us any light on that?
Yeah, the contract runs through 36, and we're working internally with them on a piece of the contract. I can't go into the details on it, but the partnership's not going away or going to be affected in a negative light at all or in a negative way at all. It's just it's a look in, and we're handling some of what that particular element of the contract states.
Is there an opportunity to rework some of the financials with that look at?
Yeah, I won't discuss that publicly because we haven't got to the finish line yet on what we're talking about.
Jim, where does the league stand collectively on the House settlement? When will the board vote? Does it require a simple majority? Is it a super majority? How does that process work?
So I will tell you that it's a majority vote. I don't know how it is for other conferences, but it is for us. And we have been meeting at least once a week, David, either virtually, and then next week we're in person in Charlotte for our annual spring meetings. And so I think you know, we're all getting to a point where we'll have to vote soon. I don't have a specific date in mind that we're going to vote, but we're also trying to make sure that we're getting all the information we can to make an educated decision. But I think it's sooner rather than later.
Do you think everybody in your league feels comfortable with the financial commitment that might be required if what we've seen gets approved?
Yeah, I think they're you know, you've talked to probably some of them. I think they're all digesting that, and part of that is it's local decisions. I think are good at times where schools that have more resources can do more. Schools with a few less resources, so some flexibility in a final kind of decision and a final agreement will be helpful for our schools. So I'm not trying to dodge it. What I would say is I think you have a few different segments about how people feel about it, and you know the other piece of it that Charlie Baker talked about that you know we still don't quite have a handle on is the collective piece, right? And the NIL piece of it. This is one portion of the new kind of iteration of what the college model is going to look like. So I think there'll be some kind of convergence as we go forward.
When you say the collective piece, do you mean bargaining?
No, I mean I'm talking about I'm talking about name, image, and likeness. I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Let me.
I was like, wait.
Yeah.
Company can work here.
Yeah,
so,
right,
okay.
right.
Jim, you talk about the different schools might invest at a different level. One of the concerns that has been voiced is that if one school is investing a lot more of that 20 million or whatever it might end up being than another, why are they all splitting their revenue from the league equally? Has there been any discussion about like your investment of that might be tied to how much revenue you get as you look at future more dynamic revenue models?
Yeah, we haven't got to that point about changing any of that type. But I would say this, and again, if there is some type of settlement, and I don't know that there will be or not, there's a threshold, you know, that you can participate in, and I don't know what it would eventually end up, you know, being, but I think we've had an experience already, and that's with the Alston Awards, right? And some did it right away, and they did it for all sports right away, and others did it over a period of time. So I just think the flexibility piece remains to be seen, but we got to get to a decision on whether we're going to settle or not. And again, I'm not here to tell you that we are or aren't at this moment.
You've been in DC quite a bit advocating for help from the federal government on things. Do you think a settlement would put the enterprise in a better position to get assistance and protection from at the federal level?
I'm not sure. People have kind of speculated that it would be helpful. I'm not sure. I haven't been to Washington in the last several weeks, and so I don't have an update. But that had been a piece that the government had been talking about. So we'll see what happens.
Jim, the comments a couple days ago from board of trustees members in North Carolina, what was your reaction to those?
Yeah, I would say this. I've been here, so I haven't, honestly, Ross, I haven't seen everything, but understand, you know, there's been some conversation. Those are campus discussions and campus politics that are going on, and so I don't know what's true and what's not, and so we'll stay close to that, and obviously headed back to Charlotte, I'll find out a little bit more, but that's what I would say there.
Well, I mean, how much concern do you have that, based on some comments, which basically were about North Carolina's future, how much concern do you have that they could be next in terms of filing a lawsuit and looking what's gonna be right for them?
Andrea, I can't get into the local dynamics. We'll see what they have to say. We'll be with President Roberts next week in Charlotte. We stay close. Nobody's reached out to me. Nobody's reached out to the conference office on that relative to the board or anybody else. So,
Jim, what's your level of hope, if you have any, that things could possibly be salvaged with FSU and Clemson? Like, could there, you know, depending on how things might happen, could there be a way out that preserves it?
like you always stay optimistic. I think you've been around me enough. You have to stay optimistic. and you work through these things. And I don't know where it's gonna go, but I continue to remain optimistic. I continue to remain optimistic about our league, and it's all of you are asking what you should be asking, but I would also ask you, don't let a really good story about the success of the ACC be overshadowed by every day, talk of litigation. And these cases are going to take a little while. We'll have to work through them, etc. Because we have 10,000 student athletes that are really doing well, that are performing at the highest level. They're doing well in the classroom. They're doing well athletically. The schools itself, these are some of the world-class institutions in the country. So I get it, and you're doing exactly what you should be. But I hope that we don't lose sight of, while this is all going on, the conference continues to do really well, and we'll manage what we have to manage. And to your question about being optimistic, I always am optimistic about a really good ending on difficult situations, and I won't ever change until something else, somebody else tells me differently. Am I gonna fight and protect the ACC? Absolutely, I have to do that. That's my responsibility. The convergence is here, and we'll see where it goes.
So what is giving you optimism that this is gonna be solid? Because, Florida State in particular said some not nice things about the conference in particular.
Yeah. So what gives me hope? When we get together and I understand, and we have a chance to really put the support behind the student athletes like we are, and we are addressing some of the financial pieces. When you talk about full distribution, you talk about success initiatives, and you talk about what we've done with the new schools, we have continued to try to close the gap. If we're chasing money, then we're chasing money. But I believe we're also trying to chase success. And so if it's just a money issue, which no one can show me that money equates success, because you can maybe show me some examples, but I can show you some examples also where schools have done really well on the national scene with some less revenue. So I hope that answers what you've asked.
One more another money question. Now,
Yeah.
What do you tell the schools about the way that CFP revenue distribution is going to be when the ACC's had success, but maybe it doesn't look like it's going to be rewarded financially?
Yeah. So when you look at some of the metrics being used, et cetera, that were used in that calculation, that's where we've performed. We've performed at the 17 to 18%. And Clemson's been the carrier of that, right? The Big Ten's performed at the 27, 28%, and the SEC's performed at the 44%, 45%, right? So it was about trying to come together, get to the right number. Felt like I negotiated hard, just like every conference did, and we got to a place that at the end of the day, do you love it? You don't love it, but it certainly was better than where we started, and it's more than we've ever had relative to CFP dollars. But I again understand it causes even a greater gap.
Jim, if you look around
Yeah. Go ahead.
to other conferences, when we talk about identity, and you can say everything about all these sports, all the successes, but to the common fan, when you say SEC, they say football.
Yeah.
Big Ten football, Big 12 basketball, parity in football. What is the ACC's identity?
We've been successful in both football and basketball. We just have. In the CFP, we've been successful. We've been successful in men's basketball and women's basketball. But I also would just say to you, those are the revenue generators, especially those first two, men's basketball and women's basketball. Our broad-based programming also should not be undersold, and that's a portion of what the ACC has always been about. So it's not at the detriment of football or men's basketball, the drivers, and women's basketball is coming on fast across the country. But we've also made a marker in the sand that 28 sports matters to the ACC. We're not sponsoring 17 or 16 sports. So that to me is the messaging of the ACC. The other piece of it is, I think we have the best academic conference. So if you talk about athletics and academics, athletic success and academic success, It's the ACC, and I get it. I get the sports fan of maybe it's just sports, maybe that's the only thing. But I'm also proud of that other element too, called academics.
Jim, you said earlier that football hasn't always gotten the success that it deserves. Why is that?
I'm not quite sure. We're looking a little bit more at that, and what is that narrative, etc. But we have to try to change that. And I know we talked a lot about it with the coaches yesterday, and we're determined to do that. And we're going to get some outside help on that too, from a communication standpoint. Because when you look at the coaches, the teams, the student athletes that are now playing in the NFL, it's a really good conference, and we've performed at a good level as well.
Well, what I was going to say is when your coaches come to you and say, because Dave Clausen said this, like, we understand the conference does well at everything, but maybe we need more attention being put on what we do in football because football is such a revenue driver.
Yeah.
What do you tell the coaches?
And they understand. When I came here, I got crucified because they said the future would be dictated by football, and the basketball coaches were really upset, and other sports. And so what have we done? Well, just take a look at what we're doing with success initiatives and the dollars. But to further that, when you look at the ACC network, the huddle, right, that we have, the preseason venture that we've committed to, the 2 signing dates, the spring games. If you look at the network, it's dominated by football appearances. Now we sprinkle it. So the network piece of it and putting football up front from a television standpoint is one of many things that we've done in that sport. And we're gonna have to continue to do that, because that's where the revenue lies.
I just had one quick, are you able to tell us some of the specific things that trigger the success initiatives? Like, are you able to list off a couple of the benchmarks?
As far as
Like is it reaching a certain win total, like winning the conference championship?
I would just say this, it's into getting into the CFP bowls, top 25, regular season, it's all of that.
Okay.
It's a pretty strong metric, and there's real finances in there, real finances.
Thanks.
Some of the dollars from some of the things that I discussed earlier. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, hey,
Thanks.
let me just, again, I just want to say thanks. I really appreciate you being down here. I'm always available. Those of you that need to get me can get me. Amy will give you my cell number and all the rest of it, but thanks for being here today.